What's up, everybody? Dog 1985. There's levels to this. I'm gonna do this very quick live stream, and then that's it. Like I don't need to spend too much time on this. So apparently the specs for the PS5 Pro have dropped. I'm gonna say this from a precautionary tale type of situation. I need every single person out there looking at the spec sheet of the PS5 Pro to be very careful, very careful before you decide to judge what the PS5 Pro can and cannot do. Remember, the beginning of this generation, we knew what the specs for the Xbox Series X was, and we knew what the specs for the PS5 was, right? However, when it came to actually seeing these games come to fruition, the PS5 is outperforming the Xbox Series X to the point where sometimes Digital Foundry couldn't believe, like, how is this possible? Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention somebody that's very special to this community, and is definitely surely missed because he would have been able to put a lot better context to this conversation way better than I can. And that is the late Optimus Code. Well, rest in peace, brother. So I met Optimus Code on my big brother's podcast, Portal Rock 77. Shout out to him. And Optimus used to speak about how there has to be synergy between the hardware, which is the machine that's being used, right? The utilization of that hardware, right? Like, how are those specs being used? And then the actual talent of the developers. You see, for me, just seeing specs, like everyone right now is trying to use this flex on the specs and all this other stuff. Listen, when someone tried to figure out how many teraflops the PS5 had, when Mark Cerny just gave a percentage of how much more power it had and didn't actually tell us how much teraflops it had, I'm telling you right now, anybody that tried to compare the PS5 Pro to a PC was an idiot. Is an idiot, was an idiot, continues to be an idiot. Like, I don't care whose feelings I offend. If you compare the PS5 Pro to a PC, you're an idiot. The PS5 Pro is a console. It's a PlayStation console. It's the most powerful console that's going to be coming out. Okay. Now that the T flops are out and the specs are out, or whatever the case may be, it still doesn't matter because you don't know how these developers are going to be able to utilize that and what talented developers are actually going to be able to utilize it. What I do know is the history of the PS5 is showing me that Sony developers definitely know how to use Sony hardware. You would have to be an idiot to believe that they can't use the actual hardware. So if this PlayStation 5 Pro is more powerful than the base PS5, I have to believe that games coming out for the PlayStation 5 Pro are going to look better and run better. I have to believe that. The only problem I have with the PlayStation 5 Pro is that I don't know what it's going to do with older games. As of right now, it just looks like it's going to give it a bump in resolution, and that's cool, but frames is really what most people want. Another thing that I'm not too fond about is, I'll be honest with you, is ray tracing. Ray tracing reflections, like, to me, maybe it's just me, but I live in the real world, and I've gone next to windows and stuff like that. Windows don't reflect exactly like the way a mirror does. And to me, whenever I see ray tracing reflections, it's almost like everything becomes a mirror. That's not the way the real world works. And that's not the only problem with graphical settings. Like, shadows do the same thing. Like, I always turn down shadows in my video games because nowhere in life do you see just sharp shadows everywhere. Like, that would be strange. That would be weird. So sometimes these technologies that are trying to be realistic, ray tracing shadows and ray tracing reflections, make the game look even more unrealistic. A car shouldn't look like you're driving a mirror. Like, that's weird. You know that's weird. Yes, there's reflections to cars, but it's not a direct reflection where, like, literally everything looks exactly like it's a mirror. So if that's the basis of what the PS5 Pro is, which I know it's not, that's not what it is. But if that's what people are using to flex right now, because I saw somebody try to use a screenshot of the Xbox Series X running, I think it was running like Alan Wake 2, and the PS5 Pro using Alan Wake 2, and the car had these crazy shadows that didn't even look realistic. or reflections that didn't even look realistic. Like that's not it. Like just relax, sit back, wait till Sony makes games for the PS5 Pro. Hopefully they do, and then you'll be able to see the power of this thing. The greatest robbery of the PS5 Pro will come if Sony doesn't make games that actually utilize its power. But why would I believe that they wouldn't do that when they've done that with the PS5? So there doesn't matter how many teraflops this thing has. It doesn't matter how many nothing. I mean, the one thing that you can tangibly say you can actually measure is going to be the storage, right? 2 terabyte of storage, but everything else is up to the developers how they use it. So for all of you out there that are trying to flex because now you know the specs of the PlayStation 5 Pro, I would do that with caution because 16 is still more than 12, right? But in reality, that doesn't even matter because 12 was more than 10, right? Isn't it what the difference was between the Series X and the PlayStation 5? So let's sit back. Let's see what Sony does. I saw the screenshot of Bloodborne, the upscale of Bloodborne. That's not a flex. That's not a flex, Sony. Sony has to do better when it comes to that. But as far as people trying to diss the specs, I would be careful. And the same caution goes for people trying to protect the specs that were just leaked. Just sit back and shut your mouth. Let Sony do what it does. Let Sony do what it does. Remember, before we knew what the PS5 could do, even PlayStation ponies were saying games over frames. Y'all remember that, right? So they didn't even know how powerful the PS5 really was. They didn't even know themselves. So now everyone's trying to act like they know. Nobody knows. Sit back, let Sony cook, let Sony do what it does. And hopefully Sony can. Hopefully all the money that Sony has wasted trying to keep games off of Xbox and on Concord and everything doesn't affect their development. They actually got games coming out that can utilize the power of the PlayStation 5 Pro. If not, then a lot of people just wasted their money. But looking at the specs and trying to downplay it based off of that, I don't think it's a smart move, all right? DocDog1985. There's levels to this. What's up, Sev? Man, you came in a little bit late, bro. I'm actually about to head off. I just did a little quick rant on the PS5 Pro. I'll probably hop on a little bit later, though, all right? We out. Peace.